What's up, everyone? This is KH Unlimited. Welcome to episode 2 of Spill the Tearal, a JRPG podcast, which is a podcast where I talk about JRPGs. Obviously, last week was episode 1. This week is episode 2. I'm hoping for this to be a weekly podcast, and I think it'll work out because this week was probably one of the busiest weeks I've had in a long time, and I'm still making time to record this. And like I mentioned last time, editing on this podcast is like very, 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 very light, almost non-existent, as I want it to be kind of more of a raw podcast. And so there's gonna be no issues from the editing front. So like the day I record this is probably the day it comes out, maybe just one day late. So yeah, so we're gonna be moving on with episode 2. First of all, some housekeeping stuff just to get that out of the way. In my description, I mentioned that this podcast is waiting to get put onto other podcast services. So right now it's on, I believe, Spotify and Anchor, which is a podcast service I use to kind of disseminate all my podcasts. I found out that the company Anchor changed. So before, for Shotlock, my Kingdom Hearts podcast, I used Anchor. I put my podcast out on it. And the point of that service is that you give it your podcast and it pretty much disseminates it to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, every podcast service, Pocket Cast, whatever it is. That's the entire point of using a podcast services, other than trying to get ads, which like I'm obviously not at that point. And so that's the point of using Anchor. So I used it again. Apparently it got bought out by Spotify at some point, which I knew, but also because of that, they stopped doing that. So it's automatically on Spotify. But for any other service, you have to make an account for that service and then submit it yourself and then wait for approval for everyone individually, which sucks. It kind of ruins the point of using Anchor in the first place. So there's going to be a delay on getting into other podcast services, which sucks. I don't know if I'm just going to go through Anchor and individually go through the services, do it myself, or I might just try to find another podcast service which will be able to do what Anchor did for me in the past. So that is something I wanted to let you guys know in case you were waiting for this podcast on a specific service. In the meantime, there is an RSS feed for this podcast, which is in the description. So from what I know about RSS feeds, you can just take that, put it into your podcast app of choice, and it should work easily. It's just that you can't search it up on the podcast service. But if you do use something like Pocket Cast like I do, you can just paste that RSS feed into the app and it should show up, from my understanding. So yeah, that's how it should work. And other than that, I also want to talk about my Final Fantasy VII Let's Play. That's still going good. I'm not sure if there's been an episode since the last time I recorded this. I think there might have been one. There's 3 episodes out right now. Like I mentioned, this is like my busiest week in a long time. I've just been literally waking up, working for like 12 hours, going to sleep. I've been doing that for the past few days. So I haven't had the time to really do much of Final Fantasy VII in terms of the Let's Play. And because I am editing them pretty like medium heavy editing kind of, it's taking a while to get out. I already recorded episode 4, it's just being edited, but because the episodes are like an hour and a half of recording, it does take at least 4 hours or something like that to edit. So that is being edited, that is going to come out, and hopefully I'll get another chance to record the next episode too. And I've kind of accepted at this point, there's no way this Let's Play is being done before Rebirth. We're mid-February, Rebirth's coming out in 2 weeks. That's not happening unless like I do like 8-hour recording sessions, which I cannot do because I work every day. And so I think the remake Let's Play is gonna finish when it finishes, and I've mentioned that I am doing the Let's Play kind of for my own satisfaction of wanting to finish a Let's Play on my channel, so I'm okay with that. And I probably wasn't going to do a Let's Play of Rebirth anyways. I just wanted to do this Let's Play because I was going to replay it anyways for Rebirth, and it seemed like a good idea. And in terms of Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion, I'm probably just going to play that on my own time. That's a game that I probably just want to play on my portal whenever I have time. So I'm probably just going to wait till it's on sale on PSN, buy then and play like that. So I think 7 Remake is going to be the Let's Play I do on this channel. And then maybe in the future, if that ever does pick up, I'll do more. But for now, that's the plan of how I'm going to go with it. And I don't know how long it's going to take. It could take 3 more weeks. It could take 3 more months. I don't know. It depends on how much time I have. I don't think that is something I can really fit into my work schedule right now. Whereas this podcast is kind of easier. It doesn't take too much time. It takes like an hour of planning, an hour of recording, and maybe like an hour or 2 of editing and thumbnail and uploading. So it doesn't take too much out of me. So that's why this podcast will be something that I'm going to focus more on. And yeah, also something if you're interested in, I guess it doesn't really count for people watching this, but if you are not interested in watching podcasts, I do clip out some parts of this podcast and put it on my channel, and I actually edit the clip out. So like They're completely watchable as their own video. So I made 2 for the last podcast. I made one talking about my experience with Yakuza as a first-time player, and talking about the new trailers for Dragon Ball Z Kakarot and Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. And it was very cool to see that the Dragon Ball video did very well compared to my usual videos, because obviously I'm trying to branch out more to JRPGs, and my channel is clearly a Kingdom Hearts channel. And so they won't get like the interest of my subscribers as my Kingdom Hearts content does. But the Dragon Ball one did get the interest. It got picked up by the algorithm, which I'm really happy about. If a Dragon Ball content is an intersection of my audience and me, I'd be really happy about that, because I do love Dragon Ball, and if that's something I can do more of, I'd love that. Like, maybe Sparking Zero Let's Play can be a thing in the future. I'm not sure, but I'll see. I'll try to do more Dragon Ball content wherever it feels natural, and if it does do good, that is something I can see myself doing more of, because Dragon Ball has been a love of mine since I was a kid, and I would love to do that. But yeah, that's something I also want to mention, that video did a lot better than my other ones. And it was really cool to see, because I literally just woke up one morning, went on Creator Studio, and saw that it was like 1 out of 10 ranked, and like it was doing really well. So thank you guys for that. I appreciate it. And that's pretty much all the housekeeping. I just wanted to get that stuff out of the way, and I think doing that in a podcast is kind of the best way to do it. No one wants to watch an update video, and so yeah. So let's get straight into the podcast, and we're gonna start with the first segment, like last time, which is what I'm playing right now. So since this is a weekly podcast, I'm just going to be talking about what I played in the last week. And like I mentioned, again, I was really busy this week with work, and so I didn't play too much. The first thing I played was Final Fantasy VII Remake. You can see what I played in the Let's Play. There isn't too much to talk about. I just got further into the game, and now I'm doing a mission with Barrett and Tifa, and we're going to Mako Reactor 5. That's pretty much what we're doing, and we just got near that area, I believe. We were just kind of going through the subway tunnels to get there. So that's the episode I recorded. That's not the one that's out. So that's pretty much what I played. And other than that, another game I played, which was pretty fun, is Nioh 2. And if you don't know what Nioh 2 is, it's kind of like a Souls-like samurai type of game, and I played maybe a few hours of it, and it's pretty fun. So I'm playing it co-op with my brother, KH Organization, and we played it for a bit, and the combat is actually really cool. I like the key pulse mechanic, where if you time your R1, you can get like some of your ki back, and if you do that, you can kind of like string your combos better. The skill tree is fucking insane. It's very in-depth, and you have kind of like a different branch of the skill tree for every stance you're in. And by that I mean is, like, for example, if you're using a sword, you have 3 stances. You can have your upper stance, your mid stance, and lower stance. And based on those, you can upgrade your skill tree for each of the stances. Then based on the skill tree, you can pretty much have different combos and things you can do in each of your stances. I'm too much of a noob, so like when I'm fighting, I literally don't look at my stance. It could be in any stance, I don't know. And I'm kind of casual like that. I don't know if I'll learn more as I go, and I'll maybe have to focus on the stances, because I've heard the game is hard. But since I'm playing it co-op, I'm not sure if it'll be easier because of that, but that is something that's been really cool about the game. Also, low-key, so far, Nioh 2 has the best character creator I've seen in any game. Easily. One of the complaints I have, based on how I look, if you see how I look, I have very long hair too. Games do not have that many long hair options, at least for dudes. They don't have good like beard and mustache options, which is like I have like this one. And so what I noticed about the game is everything is so customizable, where like you don't pick your hair in Nioh. You pick how your main hair looks, you pick how your bangs look, you pick how your side hair looks, and you pick how your ponytail looks if you choose to have a ponytail. They're all separate. You gotta pick them separately, and so I did that. It was fucking cool. You get to do that with your beard and mustache. You pick a different mustache, a different beard. As someone whose beard and mustache is kind of disconnected-ish, that's really appreciated too. So I made my character, and it looks a lot like me if I was good looking. So I'm like, that's cool. Like, I actually got to do that. I got to put glasses on. A lot of games don't have glasses as an option for some fucking reason in the creation screen. So like, Nioh 2, low-key, the best character creation system I've ever seen. And so that, coupled with a good gameplay, has been really fun. One thing I do want to mention about Nioh 2 as I've been playing it is me and my brother, as I mentioned, played for like a few hours. In that few hours, we played one level. That's all we did. It was like very long. So we were playing for like an hour, and we got to this like big like fat boss, and it took us a few tries. We beat him, and we're like, cool, we're done the level. And turns out that wasn't the boss. Turns out that I don't even know if you can consider that a mini boss, because you had to fight that level of boss probably 3, 4, maybe 5 times in the level. I think it was 3 or 4 times. And then at the end was the actual like huge boss. And it was insane how long it is, especially because the more you die in the game, the harder it is, because you pretty much have a death meter, and each time one of you dies, the death meter goes down, and if the meter ever goes to 0, you have to restart the level. And that sucks because the more you die, because we're not that good at the game, the harder it is. And like, it restarts to the checkpoint if you keep retrying, or you can just retry from the start of the level and the meter kind of gets full again. And so like me and him were just going off our first attempt, keep dying. And so our meter was very short by the end, where if any of us died once, we pretty much had to restart from the checkpoint again. We couldn't really revive each other. And so it was pretty hard. And so at some point we had to give up. We had to start the level all over again. And we kind of got our act together and got to the end. And yeah, like, it's a pretty hard game. It took us like a few hours just to do the first level, but in terms of that, it does live up to its name of being a very hard game, because I have heard that in terms of Souls games, I don't know if it's the hardest, but it is one of the harder games. So we'll see how far we get through it. And the last thing I'll mention about Nioh 2 before moving on is they have a yokai system, which is pretty cool. Is like you get to transform into a yokai. And so like when you're making the character creation screen, you get to kind of pick what horns you want. You could take like devil horns or like antlers. I chose like these cool looking antlers, and you could pretty much transform into a yokai once your meter's full, and you pretty much become like this cool ass demon, and you just fight like that for a while until you turn back. It took us a while to figure out how you do it, but like once you press like the button, you turn into it. It's super cool. You feel freaking OP. And another cool thing about the yokai system is when we first beat that fat boss I was talking about, he dropped a core, and you're pretty much able to attune with that core and use his move. So like, if your meter's slightly full, your yokai one, you could pretty much, you do a combo and you pretty much turn into that yokai for a bit just to do a move. So with that fat one, I think you jump into the air and you throw a pillar at the bad guy, and then you transform back into human. So yokai system seems pretty cool so far, especially because you can get yokai cores from mini bosses that you fight. So we'll see how that goes as the game goes on. But yeah, so far Nioh 2 seems super cool. And like I mentioned in my Lords of the Fallen video, if you've seen that one really popped off on my channel. I only play Souls games if I could play a co-op, because solo they're too hard for me. And Nioh 2 is exactly that game, where solo there's no chance in hell ever that I would play the solo. It's just too hard for me. But with co-op, I'm fine with just spending time with my brother or whatever, just playing that game. In that scenario, I'm okay with playing a hard game, and so I'm fine with it being hard. But again, I don't know if we'll beat it, we'll see. But so far, it is pretty fun, and that's pretty much my thoughts on Nioh 2. So that's enough of that. We can move on to the next segment. And the next segment is, what game am I looking forward to, or what JRPG am I looking forward to? Last week, I talked about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Obviously, I felt like that was timed pretty well with the state of play and all that. And this week, I'm going to be talking about a game which I'm looking forward to, possibly. I'm not sure if I'll get it. And it is the Sandland game. So I'm just Googling it up so I can kind of like pull it up. But if you don't know what this game is, it's apparently based on like an older manga of Akira Toriyama, which is the creator of Dragon Ball. And if you played any of the Dragon Quest games, he does the art for that. So Sandland game has a very manga style. It is, if you know how his art style looks, it literally looks just like his art style, but in 3D. I really love the art style. I think it looks beautiful. And the cool part about the game is it's very vehicle based. So Akira Toriyama has very, very specific designs for vehicles and robots that he does. If you've seen them, you'll recognize them, where they're kind of like more rounded and like more sci-fi looking. And so this game seems to be more focused on vehicles than I first expected, where like any gameplay I see is like you're riding a robot or a vehicle and you're just shooting at enemies. And so art style wise, it looks cool. Graphics wise, it looks cool. The reason I say I might not be getting it is because while I do love the vehicle designs of Akira Toriyama, like I mentioned, it seems like that's the whole game, which is not my speed. I'm just looking through the pictures, and okay, for some reason Dabora's in this. Dabora's a Dragon Ball character. I'm not sure why he's in the series, but yeah, it seems like every type of combat I've seen so far in trailers has been vehicle combat, and that's not something that speaks to me too much. So like, if the entire game is just you in a tank and shooting, that's not really my thing. Especially because the main reason I got interested in Sandland, which I didn't know because it was an implicit interest that happened, is because the main character just looks cool. He's just kind of like this small red devil, and like, I don't know why you are a devil. I don't know like what the situation is. I don't really know the plot, and I just found that pretty interesting because we really don't get games like that anymore. Because like the games that I kind of grew up on were like Ratchet and Clank, like those type of games where you just kind of like this little guy, some like weird animal fake character. Like, you're not just a human, and that's something we don't see too much of. So like Ratchet and Clank I miss. Daxter, I played Daxter before getting into Jak and Daxter, so Daxter I miss. Sly Cooper I miss. Even Little Big Planet, you're not playing as a human, you're playing as like a puppet, I miss. So those type of games I really miss. So when I saw Sandland and you were playing as like this weird little red devil dude, I was really into it because I'm like, finally, you're not playing as like some generic human or like any human in any game. I feel like that's just such a commonality in today's game industry where like seeing something like this is actually pretty original. But I was disappointed because it seems like you're always fighting in vehicles. I'm not sure if that's 100% true, just that every piece of footage I've seen has been like that. And it kind of makes me question, why are you a devil then? Like, if you're like a small devil, I expected like you might just be like brawling, or maybe you have some cool devil magic powers or something. But like, you're just using a tank. So like, could you maybe have been a human from a gameplay perspective? I'm sure like from a story perspective, you being a devil has some importance. But from a gameplay perspective, I don't see that like character being that cool. Again, this is just based on footage. I don't know, for all I know, like you are like using devil powers and shit. But yeah, that's the game I want to bring up because I am kind of like optimistically kind of interested in it, and like I may pick it up one day if it's on sale or on PS Plus or something. And visually I'm really interested. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on Sandland, and a game that I'm kind of looking forward to maybe checking out in the future. Now the next segment of Spill the Tearal is JRPG news / trailer / announcements that I find interesting. And so I looked through the website that I'm using to source this is Gamatsu, and I kind of looked through that, and funnily enough there wasn't really anything that interesting. It was mostly like DLC announcements or congratulating games for hitting 1 million copies. But funnily enough, like an hour ago, a new trailer for East 10 just came out. It's pretty much a trailer kind of confirming that it is coming to the West, because before this it was only announced for Japan. So there's a new East 10 trailer out. Originally, I wasn't going to watch it because I believe I mentioned this last episode. I don't like watching trailers because I think they spoil too much of the game. But I think for the purpose of this podcast, it might be like fun to watch it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to watch it right now. And if there's any reaction-worthy moments, I'll keep it in the podcast. If there isn't, I'll just cut it out of the podcast. So I'm going to be playing it right now. So it's only 53 seconds. It's not that long. Immediate reactions, graphic style looks amazing. I think it looks better than East 9. It looks kind of like Tales of Arise. Cool. You can see the main protagonist and the girl protagonist, which is usually in every game. Yeah, some cool monocle things, so some new tech going on. You got the East music, which they're famous for, the kind of like rock music. Ooh, boat combat, interesting. I'm usually not interested in boat combat, so that doesn't do anything for me, but it's kind of cool. Got some combo moves with the girl. The combat looks very East. I like it. Looks like she's... Oh, okay, you're fighting the girl protagonist. I don't know what that's about. And it's coming fall 2024. Interesting, okay. So that was just a short, like 50-second trailer, so that's all that was. I believe I kept that because I was talking about the trailer, which makes sense. But yeah, it's pretty cool that we got the confirmation. I don't think there was any hesitancy of East 10 not coming to the West, because all the past East games, pretty much, at least the recent ones, have come to the West. So East 10 was going to happen, and East 10 in Japan had been announced for like a long time now. But it's super cool to see the initial trailer, and the trailer was fine. I don't think it really spoiled anything except like a few characters. But combat looks like East. I think visually it looks really good. I want to say it looks better than East 9. It has this kind of sort of shading that I'm seeing more in recent anime games, kind of like Tales of Arise. So I'm really liking the graphic upgrade, because East has been a game which like is fun gameplay wise, but visually is never looked that good, which I'm okay with. Even the Trails games I don't think look amazing, but like I love them. They're my favorite game series. So yeah, I just wanted to mention the East 10 trailer, not really much to talk about that other than that. And something I want to mention real quick, because there's no other real news that I want to talk about, is that the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth State of Play did happen last week. I think it happened the same day that I recorded my episode 1, and I'm not sure if I mentioned it in that episode, but I didn't watch the State of Play. I don't plan to watch the State of Play. Like many people, I am going complete blackout with Rebirth, because the first 2 trailers were more than enough for me to see, and especially because I haven't played the original Final Fantasy VII. I am like super sensitive to spoilers, so like anything I see is kind of a spoiler to me. And I think the trailers have already shown me too much. Like there's this character they've shown, I won't say the name just in case other people are like me, that the one that with the red coat and black hair. I don't want to know more about that. Just from people talking about it, I've already been spoiled on what side he's on. So like I don't want to see any more of this game. I think I've been spoiled too much already. So yeah, that State of Play happened for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Just in case you are interested and you want to watch it, you can go watch it. It was a thing that happened, and I'm assuming a new trailer popped out from that. And also a new demo popped up from that. That's something I do want to mention. So a Final Fantasy VII Rebirth demo did come out. I believe it's coming out in 2 parts. One part is already out, which is just the starting of the game. So you can just play that demo and then transfer your save to the full game. Something I love that's been happening more recently. Something I think one day should become a standard for the games industry. I don't know why it's taking so long, but I really do think that the first hour or whatever of the game should be a free thing that you can just transfer over to the full game. So I love that. I'm definitely going to play that. Like, I did that for Final Fantasy 16 too, is before I purchased the game, I tested like that to see if I like it, and then I just transferred over after buying it if I do like it. So that's definitely something I'm going to be doing for FF16. And I heard there's a part 2 of the demo coming out later. I thought it was already out, but apparently it's coming out later, like a week before the game comes out, I think, which is going to be more of a demo of the open world segment of the game. And based on an article I read, that segment is kind of like edited more towards the demo. So like there are stuff that's cut out, which means that part is not going to transfer to the game. So the first part of the demo you can transfer. The second part is just more for you to get a feel of the game if you're kind of excited for it. I probably won't be playing that part of the game because I don't need to, and like I don't like playing long demos that I can't transfer over because I don't really have the time for that. So yeah, that is just another part of the news for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Now for our next segment, which is what JRPGs are releasing this week. So I'm recording this on February the 14th, Wednesday. So my week is from February 11th to the 17th. So any game that's releasing in that window, any JRPG that's releasing in that window, I'll talk about it. Now, I forgot to mention this last week. I'm sorry about this, but I am sourcing these release dates from a specific website. I'm getting it from icicledisaster.com. So whatever they say is coming out, I'm taking it from that. I tried to see if there were more websites that did this JRPG type of upcoming release date list. Unfortunately and surprisingly, there isn't that much. I like looked around literally for like 30-40 minutes. There just aren't that many websites doing it. A lot of websites have the release dates for 2023 games and games in the past, but in terms of looking forward, Icicle Disaster is the best website that I found so far. So check them out, give them a click if you so want to, because I am getting my information from them. But yeah, so the first game is a game that's coming on PC on the 13th of February, so yesterday from when I'm recording it, and that is Dragon Quest Builders. Now, this game is not a new game. I believe Dragon Quest Builders 2 was even a thing, but I guess this is the first time it's coming out on PC, and Dragon Quest Builders is a pretty fun game. I remember I think there was a demo at some point on the Switch, and that's where I played it. It's a pretty cool game. I remember at the time it felt like a kind of a different Minecraft, but now that I know more of the genre today, I think based on my memory, it's more of what you see today with like Valheim and Lego Fortnite and Palworld. I believe it was more that type of game where you kind of get to create a village, you kind of get NPCs to live with you, things like that. So if you're into the Dragon Quest franchise and you're into that genre of game that I just mentioned, check it out. It did come out yesterday for PC, or you might have already played it because it's on other consoles. Next game, it is coming out today, also on PC. It is called Dungeon Travelers 2 Heart 2 in Another World. I'll just mention this is a sussy game. It is more... I'm looking on the Steam page. The first picture kind of shows what it is. It's hentai adjacent, kind of. It's a very anime game. It's what people think anime is that don't watch anime. It literally says frequent nudity. So if this is your type of game, it looks kind of visual novel-y. There is some combat because I can see a screenshot showing like attack, skill, defend item. So if you're into it, check it out. It's not my type of game, but yeah, it's called Dungeon Travelers 2 Heart 2 in Another World. The first 2 is TO, the second 2 is a number. I'm not sure why, but yeah, that's coming out today, and by the time you see this episode, it's probably already out. So yeah, check that out if you so desire. The next game, which is coming out tomorrow, February 15th on the Switch, is called Bancho Tactics, and this is a game that looks kind of interesting. If I'm being honest, it looks like it kind of looks like based on like how Japanese gangs look like in kind of like older anime. You kind of look like a student in school in some form of gang, and you're just fighting people. It's an isometric, almost like a beat 'em up game, but based on the screenshots I'm seeing, it's not like a live beat 'em up. It's more like a strategy game, kind of akin to Fire Emblem, where you kind of have a grid system and you fight like that. So the art style looks cool. The gameplay looks kind of cool. This is the type of game I'd only play if it has like a fantastic story, which I'm not sure it does, because it's not out yet. Wait, it is out on PC. Oh, it's coming out Switch, so it's out on PC. Reviews say it's very positive, so it looks like a very good game, but yeah, that's a game that's coming out on Switch on the 15th if you're interested, but it is already on PC based on Steam. And the last game I want to talk about is a game I actually did not get this from Icicle Disaster. I got this from RPG site. I don't know why this isn't on the JRPG list from Icicle Disaster, but I think because it's kind of like a bundle re-release. It is pretty much the Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 3 and 4. They're releasing it on the PlayStation 5 on February 16th. I don't know why this is happening. Like, obviously, you guys know I like the Trail games, because this game you can play on the PS5 right now. Technically, it was only released on PS4, so I guess that's why they're releasing this. But yeah, it's coming out on the PS5. It's coming as a bundle. That's pretty cool. Assuming that they're going to be priced more like a normal game together, it is a steal. I think those games, like the way I play, were like around 80 hours each. And if you don't know how the Trails games work, especially Cold Steel, Trails of Cold Steel 1 and 2 together are kind of like a game, and 3 and 4 together are kind of like one game, because like the way 1 ends goes directly into 2, the way 3 ends goes directly into the 4. So 3 and 4 together makes perfect sense. You could just think of it as a very fucking massive 150-hour game together. And so if you have not played it, play it. Obviously it starts from Trails of Cold Steel 3, so you should play Trails of Cold Steel 1 and 2 first, but that is something that's coming on PlayStation 5 on February 16th. I am kind of miffed because I believe it's coming with some kind of incentive. I think it's coming with some kind of art book or something, which I would have loved to have, since this is my favorite series, but I'm not going to shell out on the game again just to get it. Maybe if it was on a different console, but like, I already have it on PlayStation, so I'm good with that. And that kind of rounds up the JRPG releases that's happening this week. And now we're going to go into our next segment, which is some kind of JRPG mechanic slash character slash theme or trope or thing that I like in JRPGs or a specific JRPG. Last week I talked about a system that was in Trails of Cold Steel, and this one is funny because I kind of thought of this on the spot. I literally just have one word here on my notes, and it just says Torgal. Now, if you don't know what that means, is Torgal is the name of the dog slash wolf that Clive uses in Final Fantasy 16. And the reason I'm mentioning is because it's so bizarre how much, like, it's a mechanic that I never really focused on in the game, but it's bizarre that I kind of miss it when I'm playing other JRPGs. Pretty much, if you've never played Final Fantasy 16, Torgal is your dog, and you just have him with you. And no matter where you go in the game, for the most part, he is there. So there are parts of the story, no spoilers, that like your party members just aren't there with you. But you bet your ass Torgal's gonna be there with you. He's your dog, so he's always gonna be there with you. You can command him to do certain attacks. You can command him to heal you. So like you have like D-pad commands for him. And so what I really love about this mechanic is, I remember as a kid, whenever I played like Kingdom Hearts or Kingdom Hearts 2, there were certain parts of the story where they didn't let party members come with you, or like they restricted you to a certain number of party members, and that always miffed me. And I know why, because of technical limitations at the time. But even games today, like whenever you go into a cool battle and your party members are like, yeah, this is a battle for you, we'll stay back, or we have to do something else, I'm always like, come on, bro, like we're supposed to be a team, like come with me, let's do this together. I just find it more fun for some reason when there's party members with me. It kind of makes the stakes more interesting too. And so the fact that Torgal is just with you all the time, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but there is a moment of the game where they kind of play with the Torgal mechanic where something happens, which I found very interesting, and which really made me focus on the mechanic, which I really loved in Final Fantasy 16. And so the mechanic of having a thing or a dog or like an animal or a person with you that sticks with you throughout the game, and it's not just there, you get to kind of command them a bit. And it being a dog, I think, is perfect because like it's your pet, you get to kind of command it like in real life. That's what you do with dogs. So it made perfect sense. It makes more sense than like having a human NPC with you or a party member and you commanding it. That doesn't really make too much sense. And so I just think it was a mechanic that was very well done, and something honestly I hope to see in more games where like it just felt very reassuring that like there are parts of the story where like you can kind of tell because you're going into a boss where like a party member would be like, okay, Clive, this is your battle, I'm gonna back up. And I was like, come the fuck on, bro, come with me. But like, you know, Torgal's right there on your side, and it was just very gratifying having him there with me. So that's kind of all I want to mention. I just want to mention that Torgal was a great mechanic, and a mechanic that I do want to see more in future JRPGs or RPGs in general. And the reason that I actually came to this idea in the first place is because like I mentioned, I'm playing Final Fantasy VII Remake, the Let's Play on my channel, and I think I mentioned in the first episode that like it felt weird until I got my party members that I didn't have a Torgal with me, because the combat is kind of similar to Final Fantasy 16, and so like I kind of like wanted to have a Torgal with me that I can command. And it's just very useful because Torgal can heal you too, for some reason. And so like there were some tight spots where like I didn't have my potion on, I just made Torgal like heal me a bit. It heals you a little, but like it was very useful. And so hopefully that is something that comes back in some form in the future. But yeah, Torgal as a mechanic, let me know what you think about it too. If you play Final Fantasy 16, did you care about the mechanic? Did you not? Did you just forget about it? I know like I mentioned, a lot of times I completely forgot about the mechanic, but when it wasn't there, I felt that. So yeah, hopefully that's a mechanic that comes in the future. And from that, we will sunset this episode by going into our last segment, which is a JRPG top list. Kind of a casual top list is what I want to call it, because as you saw from last episode, if you watched it, I'm not going to go in depth into every answer and kind of like go from the last number to the first number and have some form of suspense. I'm just going to give you all my list right now and talk briefly about each of the items if I feel like it. So this week, the list will be my top 3 JRPG weapons. Now, if this was like a serious top 3 or top 5 or whatever list, I would like kind of search every single JRPG that I'm into, look at every single weapon of the JRPG, pick my favorite 5, and then list them out in order. I didn't do that. I literally just thought about my favorite games, thought about quickly what my favorite weapon was from that game, and went like that. So I picked my 3 JRPG weapons. Number 3 is Masamune from Final Fantasy, which is Sephiroth's sword. Number 2 is the Braveheart from Kingdom Hearts, which is Riku's newest Keyblade. And number 1 is a Tachi from Trails of Cold Steel, specifically Rin's Tachi. Now, just very briefly going into these, Masamune from Final Fantasy, honestly, this wasn't even on my radar until I played Final Fantasy 16. And one thing about me in terms of weapons is katanas are my favorite types of weapon. I just think they look super fucking cool. And so when you got Masamune in Final Fantasy, and I think like the way I can't remember fully, but I think the way you get Masamune is like hella low key. I think I went down some like random path and I just found a treasure chest and I had the Masamune and I was like, holy fuck. And at that point, I didn't know that it was Sephiroth's sword. I just remember that I recognized the name. Only later did I realize that it was Sephiroth's sword. I think I just realized from the internet, someone mentioning it. And I just liked it because it was just a katana. But after when I found out Sephiroth's sword, I'm like, okay, that's pretty badass. And I pretty much kept that sword as long as possible as I could when playing Final Fantasy 16. At some point, I did have to remove it because I got a stronger weapon. But after they added transmogrification in the game where you can just make your sword look like whatever you want, you bet your ass I put the Masamune back on in terms of visuals of the sword, and I kept that for the rest of the game. I just think katanas look super badass, and seeing Clive, which is this kind of like beefy strong dude, which I feel like wouldn't be using a katana, use a katana look kind of funny. And so yeah, so I just kept the Masamune on for the rest of the game. And that's all I'll say about that. Moving on to number 2 is the Braveheart from Kingdom Hearts. I think I mentioned this in a previous video. I think the Braveheart is easily the best looking Keyblade in the game, and the main reason I really like it is the concept of using a modern key for the Keyblade, because yeah, usually if you look at the Kingdom Key, it is based off kind of like cartoon or ancient keys, which is a thin bar with kind of like the teeth at the end, and it works for the Kingdom Key. It's not like a disliked or anything, but after I saw the Braveheart, I was like, yeah, I don't know why I never thought of using a modern key for a Keyblade. And the thing I love the most, which I think is kind of underappreciated, it's not like they just took like the end of a real key and put that as a Keyblade, because I could see that'd be kind of whatever, like, because like if you look at the Braveheart, it doesn't actually look like a key. It doesn't actually have like indentations for teeth. It's like they took a key that was uncut and then added more of a flair onto it with those kind of like dimples all around. So it is more of a design than maybe some people may give it credit for, but I just love that it's very symmetric. As in, if you look at the silhouette, it's symmetric, but the dimples give it an asymmetric design. So there's kind of like a design philosophy going on with the Braveheart that I just really appreciate. I'm not sure why, it's just very satisfying to me on an aesthetic level. But yeah, Braveheart from Kingdom Hearts is my second pick, and number 1 is Rin's Tachi from Trails. Like I mentioned with the Masamune, I love katanas, and I googled what the difference between a Tachi and a katana is, because they look the same to me, and apparently Tachi is just supposed to be kind of like a longer, heavier katana, so that's what it is, but it pretty much just looks like a katana. And the main reason why I like the Tachi from Trails of Cold Steel is because it is one of the rare katanas, at least in my experience, is one of the rare katanas in games that deviates from the katana's design. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean is like, for example, Masamune is a perfect example. If you look at the Masamune, it is a katana, pretty much. Like you can like, if you see the Masamune in real life, you'd be like, oh, that's katana. You wouldn't really be like, oh, that's a Masamune. Like, you wouldn't really recognize that unless like you really know how the Masamune looks. With Rin's Tachi, if you look at it, it is his sword. Like, it is a design specific to them. Like, if you were a fan of Trails of Cold Steel and you saw Rin Tachi in real life, you'd be like, yo, that's Rin Tachi. Like, there's no question about it. And so like that's the main reason I like it. They pretty much gave it a design aesthetic that fits in that world, because even though it's not a sci-fi game, they have kind of like sci-fi design elements with people's weapons, because they have like staffs, they have guns, they have swords, but they have kind of like a sci-fi spin to it in some ways. And so Rin's Tachi is just like, if you imagine a katana, but where the guard of the sword is, it kind of extends back and has like a cool like quarter shuriken design. That's the best way I can explain it, where there's a hole and there's like a part sticking up from behind the guard. So it almost looks like a mix of a katana and like a traditional sword that you would see a knight use almost, but it has a very clean and sharp design. And also something that I honestly didn't notice this in the games, but I'm seeing this from kind of like the key art from the game, is it has this cool like red string at the end of it, kind of like where the keychain for a keyblade would be. It has kind of this 2 strands of red string with like golden beads on it. That's super fucking cool. I really love the contrast of that. And I think a defining element of the sword is also that the handle is kind of wrapped with like the golden and purple cloth or whatever you call it. That's pretty much how it looks color wise. And so like in terms of color, in terms of design, I think it looks like super cool. It is super original. Again, if you saw this, like you would 100% recognize it as Rin's Tachi, assuming you know what Rin's Tachi looks like. But yeah, design wise, I like it, and I really love it story wise too, because it is an important thing to Rin, and it is his main sword. Is a sword he always uses. And like, I won't go into a spoiler, but there is something about this Tachi that comes later in the game too, which is cool. That happens where he has to kind of make another one. So like, I really like Rin's Tachi, and it's just cool because it's my favorite design, and it happens to belong to the main character too, which is always a plus. Like, to me, this is kind of like how a lot of people feel about Cloud's Buster Sword. What people feel about Buster Sword is how I feel about Rin's Tachi. It's just like the perfect weapon to me, and I really love how it looks. And it's one of those swords that I would love to just fucking have on my wall, just displayed as some people do with katanas. But yeah, that's pretty much my top 3 list. Number 3 was Masamune from Final Fantasy. Number 2 was Braveheart from Kingdom Hearts. Number 1 was Rin's Tachi from Trails of Cold Steel. And that is going to round out this episode of Spill the Tearal. This was episode 2. Like I mentioned last week, if you guys have opinions on the top list that I just gave, please let me know down below. Let me know if you agree or disagree with me. Let me know your top weapon. I would love to know what your top weapon is in JRPGs or gaming in general, because that's just super interesting. I want to see what takes other people have. And if you want to give a top list of your weapons, that'd be fucking amazing. I would love to read about that. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I don't think there's more to say in this episode, so I will let you go now. I hope to see you next week for episode 3. Peace.